of the de facto government in Bolivia is called into question as human rights abuses are condemned.
Works delayed.
Jamaica PM Andrew Holness slams plans to steal from the state.
Extortion.
And votes are counted in Namibia as SWAPO faces a challenge to its 29 years in government. Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, and this is From the South. The persecution of social and political leaders tied to the government of President Evo Morales continues in Bolivia. Daisy Choque, the former Movement Towards Socialism candidate for Monteiro, is being held in pre-trial detention accused of murder, criminal association and incitement. She was arrested while giving an interview at her home. Her lawyer says she's a political prisoner. Choque's detention comes amid numerous denunciations of human rights abuses committed by the de facto authorities following the right-wing coup after October 20th elections. The president of the delegation sent by Mercosur to investigate human rights abuses in Bolivia, Cecilia Merchan, has said the killing of anti-coup protesters must be recognized if the country is to find a solution to the crisis.
There have been grave human rights abuses in Bolivia. We believe that there is a moment in which the Bolivian people are going to have to try and escape this situation, and that's something that's being argued over. An electoral calendar is something fundamental to the reconstruction. Democracy is central to this. Something else that is crucial to a democratic solution is the recognition of what has happened during this time. There has to be recognition of those killed, the 1,000 prisoners, many without reason, and also those who are exiled in embassies here and that can't leave because the government won't let them.
Meanwhile, the Bolivian Ombudsman's office has confirmed the death of Calixto Wanacu Aguilar, who was shot in the head by forces of repression earlier this month. Wanacu Aguilar died at hospital, becoming the 10th person to succumb to injuries incurred in the Sincata massacre on November 19th during a military and police operation against demonstrators blocking access to a fuel depot near the city of El Alto. Senator for the Movement Towards Socialism, Adriana Salvatierra, has demanded an investigation into the 32 deaths that came from military and police repression following the coup against President Evo Morales.
We demand the impartial investigation by international organizations of the 32 deaths reported following military and police repressions, taking into account of disproportionate use of public and military forces. We demand care of the wounded, compensation for victims' families, and the immediate release of detainees who were arrested without due process. We also demand that any responsibilities be determined in a personal manner, and call for respect and freedom of the press, condemning censorship of the media. This main request has been made by sectors of El Alto, Cochabamba, and the north of Potosí, from mining sectors that demand the approval of Supreme Decree 4078.
Our correspondent in La Paz, Mateo Grier, has the latest.
The exiled Bolivian President Evo Morales has denounced the de facto government led by Janine Áñez for the persecution of political leaders linked to the Movement Towards Socialism party and the previous government. He also denounced the persecution of social movements across the country. Morales was speaking while other denouncements are being made against persecution. Yesterday, the former president of the Senate, Adriana Salvatierra, and the Congresswoman Sonia Brito held a news conference at which they highlighted the Áñez government's numerous breaches of human rights, evidence of press censorship, and lack of respect for freedom of opinion. The conference took place at the National Assembly and adds to the denouncing of permanent persecution conducted by the de facto government against distinct social sectors. actors. And right now in Bolivia, a Human Rights Commission has arrived from the Mercosur Parliament expressing its concern about these problems. The Commission has already interviewed numerous political actors in the country, including both those that support the MAS party and those of the current de facto administration. They have also interviewed people from Sencata.
Now, in an exclusive interview for Telesur, the mayor of Binto in Bolivia, Patricia Arce, called for an end to the persecution of MAS party officials. Arce was kidnapped and humiliated by far-right opposition protesters after the October 20th election.
I really have cleared my conviction. They could have cut my hair and hurt me, but the feeling and ideas are intact. And the only thing I want to ask to the whole country is to really think about it. It's inhuman what they have doing to our people. For me, it's something that I never really imagined that Bolivia will live through these atrocity moments. And so many people with our country. The truth is very frightening and I really very afraid because it's not only Patricia, it's so many women who could have suffered this. It doesn't seem fair that by thinking differently, they have harmed so much a person.
Shifting gears now, Peru is putting up its own candidate for Secretary General of the Organization of American States to stand against the incumbent Luis Almagro. Hugo de Zilla Martinez is a former vice foreign minister and Peru's current ambassador to the OAS. His candidacy indicates splits within the Lima Group, which Almagro helped to set up to press for regime change in Venezuela. The former president of the UN General Assembly, Maria Fernanda Espinosa, who was Ecuador's foreign minister under Rafael Correa, has also confirmed she will stand. Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarrett has condemned an Al Jazeera documentary alleging the sale of diplomatic passports by high officials, labeling it a conspiracy created by the opposition. He says the false claims have been shared by the United Workers' Party for years and threatened legal action for defamation.
It was clear to me, as it will be to you, that either Linton, the UWP directly, or their foreign collaborators provided this business information to Al Jazeera for political reasons. People who libel me will find themselves before the courts.
And as Dominica prepares for its December 6th election, we spoke to Ralph Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who accused the regional neighbors' opposition of trying to cause confusion.
Election train has left the station legitimately, and it's on its way to election day. If anyone thinks that the election is proceeding unconstitutionally, you can go to the court. It's unlikely that the court is going to take you seriously because you really can't stop an election as such before it is taken. So even except if there's a national emergency, and the Constitution prescribes limits in relation to how the executive can act in relation to postponing an election during a state of emergency. What they want to do is to cause confusion for Prime Minister Scarrett. The opposition wants to cause confusion. And create disorder so that an emergency situation would arise. Dominica, which has a very strong, this government and Prime Minister Scarrett, a strong anti-imperialist record. The imperialist forces want to get rid of him. It's as simple as that. And of course, the local opposition has its own set of reasons. But the election framework is free and fair. It's a very sound one. And every electoral system can be improved, however good it is. But the fact of the matter is this: the one in Dominica is sound, and you're going to have free and fair election. And when Scarrett wins, again, as is likely, you may have trouble from the opposition, and the imperialist forces may try and stoke those opposition forces. But those of us who know what is happening. We just have to be prepared to defend the Republic of Dominica and defend the government in the pursuit of the attainment of the highest democratic ideals and free and fair elections, which I'm sure we're going to have in Dominica.
Coming up after the break, we take a look at the Venezuelan government's efforts to ensure health care for all, despite the illegal blockade on the country. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Criminal elements see infrastructural projects as an opportunity to rob the state. So said Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who warned that this will not be tolerated at the start of the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project in St. Thomas.
Works delayed, work done sub-quality, substandard, extortion, overruns. It's not going to happen here. Let me just be very blunt. The government will not stand by and allow this national project to be in any way captured by thugs, criminals, and dons.
Chairman of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown is calling on countries to adhere to the UN principles of non-interference in the affairs of other states. Brown made the appeal at a recent signing ceremony with China.
The People's Republic of China believes in the principle of non-interference in the affairs of other states. That is a principle that Antigua and Barbuda holds dear. They believe in mutual respect, which we also hold dear, and they also believe in mutual trust. We have noted that there has been growing mistrust globally among nations, mistrust that continue to create conflicts, even conflicts between China as a great power, an emerging superpower, and the United States. I believe that the relationship between Antigua and Barbuda and the People's Republic of China could be an example for others, which will help to promote global peace and prosperity. In fact, China believes in peaceful coexistence. And if other nations would adopt those policies, I believe that we will have a more peaceful world.
Also at that signing ceremony, Antigua's PM requested a further $20 million for the expansion of UWI's 5 Islands campus. The signing was for a grant under the government's affordable housing project worth $11 million and a $250,000 education grant toward a multimedia center at the 5 Islands campus. The 3rd Energy, Oil and Gas Conference started on Wednesday in Havana, Cuba. The meeting, organized by the Union Cuba Petroleo, represents an important event for potential investors interested in the country's resources. It features presentations by 50 leaders and experts in the energy field in front of hundreds of delegates from public and private organizations. According to official figures, Cuba's oil and gas exports amount to 3.5 million tons a year. And some breaking news from Uruguay. The candidate of the governing Broad Front has just conceded defeat in last Sunday's presidential election. In a tweet, Daniel Martinez said the counting of special votes had not changed the tendency shown on Sunday night. He was therefore congratulating Luis Lacalle Pou as president-elect. He said he would meet his rival on Friday. Sunday's results gave the right-wing Lacalle a lead of less than 30,000 votes, which meant no official result was possible until the special votes were counted. Moving on, protests against the government of Ivan Duque are into their 2nd week in Colombia. Our correspondent in Bogota, Hernan Tobar, has more.
This is the 8th day of marches and protests in Colombia, organized by students, teachers, and other trade unions and movements to demand that the government ends its neoliberal policies. They are protesting in particular against President Iván Duque's package of reforms to pensions, taxes, and labor rights. The students, who have played a leading role in recent days, are demanding more public spending on education and an investigation into corruption in the public universities. Today, they are holding concerts in some of the parks of Bogotá, and they are calling a march from the center of the city to the north to make their voices heard.
In spite of the difficulties caused by the economic blockade, the government of President Nicolas Maduro is stepping up efforts to ensure decent health care for everyone in Venezuela. Our correspondent went to the main heart hospital in Caracas to find out more.
The Vargas Hospital in Caracas is a benchmark for cardiovascular medicine, and all this week it is holding special sessions. Carlos Padilla came with his children from Maracay to get the treatment he needs. Here, the state supplies for free, but will cost him between $15,000 and $30,000 in a private hospital.
I came here to get my arteries unblocked, and I have to say it's a very good alternative for me, and I really believe they can help me.
The Venezuelan government is making a big effort to help people and improve the situation. The aim is to allow people to get better, in spite of the circumstances.
Cardiovascular problems account for a third of all illnesses and deaths in Venezuela. In this hospital, 240 people are receiving treatment, and 70 operations are carried out every month. In the special sessions this week, 50 patients will get surgery. Antonio Fernandez is one of them.
It's very good. They are quick and very caring.
Dr. Mauro Herrera is the head of the heart unit. He explains the impact of the blockade imposed on Venezuela by the United States.
The idea is to develop blood units throughout the country. That's the plan which is being put into practice now. But remember that we have a blockade which reduces our ability to buy spare parts and repair or maintain our equipment. This is the big challenge which the state has to get around, how to get these supplies here. And it's not just a problem with U.S. companies. All foreign companies dealing with Venezuela are sanctioned.
We know very well where all this situation comes from the United States and imperialism. This whole war is not just against Venezuela, but against all countries. Look at Chile now, and they have intervened in our sister country, Bolivia.
And the patients are not just Venezuelans. Foreigners, especially from Colombia and Ecuador, are also being treated as part of this program, a joint effort by several ministries to overcome the crisis and guarantee health care to all who need it.
Still to come, the death toll rises after a crackdown on protests in Iraq. Stay with us. Welcome back. Vote counting is underway in Namibia after polling in the country's general election ended late on Wednesday night. This critical vote will presumably shift power from the ruling Southwest Africa People's Party, which has ruled since independence in 1990. Namibians voted to appoint a new president and lawmakers from 11 candidates and 15 parties. President Hage Geingob is seeking re-election. Over 1 million citizens voted across the 14 regions of the country. The Electoral Commission has refused to say when provisional results will be released.
No, actually, it looks like everything went well, but it's only that most people, they were complaining about the AVM because it was like first time to use these machines. And I can see that even observers, most of the observers were also trying to be complaining a bit because we are used with the, voting of like normally, crossing and so all those things. So this was all like a new thing to us. But people, they tried their level best.
It's perfect. Where we are, maybe the people get vote until 2 o'clock. But me, because I have a small kids at home, I can't lock them in. I go sleep. But the other until they're finished. Someone said they're done 4 o'clock.
More than 18,000 people have been displaced across Kenya due to heavy rains and flash floods. The government says this severe start to the rainy season has left at least 120 dead. Major roads and bridges have been damaged in West Pokot, making it more difficult to provide humanitarian aid to the affected areas. Doctors have expressed concern that diseases and other waterborne illnesses might spread.
We have health issues. And is it wounds? Is it children who are coming up with pneumonia? Is it diarrheal illnesses? So, on the health, we have a story there. What of food? And food goes together with nutrition. What of shelter? And that also goes with other non-food items. Yes. So other than health, there are other issues that we must think about.
We're facing a big challenge because many people who were found dead in Pokot Central were washed away by the waters. Some of the bodies are in bad shape, some without arms or have been split, as the floods were so intense. They were hit against rocks, trees, and getting squeezed as they were being swept downriver. This has been our biggest challenge. But for now, our team is on the ground to make sure we recover the remaining 12 bodies.
Benin has ordered the European Union's ambassador to leave the country for meddling in its domestic affairs. According to authorities, Ambassador Oliver Nett was harmful to the country, while clarifying that Benin has nothing against the EU. Oliver has also been accused of constantly calling on civil society to protest against the government. Benin is not the only African country to go down the path of expelling meddlesome diplomats. Rwanda, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Somalia have also recently thrown out ambassadors. In other news, Iraqi protesters blocked roads in the southern city of Najaf after 24 people were killed by riot police during overnight demonstrations. Strikers defied a curfew that was instituted after they torched the Iranian consulate in Nasiriyah on Wednesday. Although security forces have been deployed, protesters burned tires and debris on the streets. Violence has escalated after weeks of mass demonstrations that aim to bring down a government seen as corrupt. The leader of the Spanish Podemos party has said that he hopes the country has a government by Christmas Eve. Podemos and the ruling PSOE party have agreed to a coalition deal in principle, but are relying on support from other parties to form a new government.
First of all, we have to move forward with the investment of a government. And PSOE and their candidate for the presidency, Pedro Sanchez, will have to be at the head of it. Podemos and PSOE have to be capable of gathering enough support to progress with this. That's the first task, and it's not yet complete. We have to work, push for dialogue, empathy, and the left. The date is unclear. The next president of the Chamber of Deputies will have to determine that, and it could take a while because there are so many parties. As such, it's a longer process. In any case, I hope that by Christmas Eve, Spaniards have a government.
Millions of young people have registered to vote in the coming UK election following a huge push by the Labour Party. Our correspondent Pablo Navarrete has the details from London.
The UK elections are a little over 2 weeks away, and yesterday, Tuesday, saw the deadline for people to register to vote. According to the figures released so far, approximately 4.1 million people have registered to vote in the last 5 weeks, which is a rise on the 2.9 million figure for the 2017 elections. In the last 2 days of the register to vote time period, Monday and Tuesday, apparently 1 million people registered to vote, with 660,000 registering just on the last day. Now, this follows the intervention by various people in British society, such as the famous music artist Stormzy, on Sunday, released a call on his Twitter account for people to register to vote and to vote for the socialist leader of the opposition Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, in what was seen as a very significant endorsement. Other figures such as the England footballer Raheem Sterling took to Twitter calling on people to vote to register, and a little late on Tuesday, with only less than 2 hours left for people to register, the famous British singer Adele also urged people to register to vote. Now, it is said by analysts that the new people that are registering to vote are disproportionately young, and this favours the Labour Party, although polls put Labour significantly behind the Conservatives at the moment. So we'll see what effect these new registrants on the electoral roll have in the election, which is on the 12th of December, so a little over 2 weeks away.
And that was our correspondent Pablo Navarrete bringing us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsa Channel 461 in South Africa and Channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Kolo. Thank you so much for watching.
The Pakistani journalist